Hi, my name is Shayla Wilson. I'm the AmeriCorps intern with Cobb Collaborative for this school year, and I'm working on podcast and also helping with social media.
Hello, I'm Leslie Knotts, the Mental Health Program Coordinator.
Hello, everyone. My name is Caitlin Ball. I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives and Partnerships at Cobb Collaborative.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nicola Hines. I'm the Vote Your Voice Coordinator for Cobb Collaborative.
Hello, my name is Leslie Danford, and I am the Literacy Coordinator for Cobb Collaborative.
Hi everyone, my name is Irene Barton, and it's my privilege to serve as the Executive Director of the Cobb Collaborative. So, welcome to our new podcast format. We are so excited about this. Video and audio, whoa, we're just charging right into the 21st century. But before we get into all of that, let me just remind our listeners and our viewers a little bit about what the Cobb Collaborative is. So we are a nonprofit. We've been around for close to 28 years here serving Cobb County. We're actually part of a statewide network called the Georgia Family Connection Partnership. So a little bit of trivia. Anybody know how many counties there are in Georgia?
159.
100. Oh, yeah. If I had a prize, you all would get one. So there's a collaborative in every county in Georgia focused on the issues that are most pressing in that community. So in Cobb, we focus on third grade reading proficiency, mental health, and civic engagement. And we're going to talk more about all of those and how they are interconnected. But really, kind of our North Star is to improve outcomes for children and families. And we're all very adamant that that's all children and all families here in Cobb County. We do this by convening stakeholders, so think about really anyone who's child and family facing. Yes, that is a lot of other nonprofits, but also our education systems, our public schools as well as private schools, higher education, local government, state government, public health, private health care. I mean, the list just goes on, really, when you think about all the different sectors that a family, and particularly families with children, would interact with in our community. So we bring those stakeholders together. We serve as what we call the backbone agency for collective impact models. So we're not only tracking the impact of our work, but also looking at data and statistics about what our partners are doing and trying to keep all of that, between the guardrails, between the buoys, as we track the improved outcomes for children and families. And I'll just go back for just a second to the Georgia Family Connection Partnership. So it was founded about 32 years ago, I think, by then Governor Zell Miller, when the first annual Annie E. Casey Kids Count data came out. And Georgia was ranked, well, to be honest, a little bit low, about 48th in the country when it comes to child well-being. So out of that, the partnership was formed, again, to work with families and children in communities, real grassroots, learning and listening and then responding to the needs. So pleased to say that after over 3 decades of work, Georgia has improved. We rank 37th in the country in terms of child well-being. So definitely cause for celebration, but also we know that there's a lot of work that continues to be done and that needs to be done. And that's kind of how we ended up upon our 3 initiatives. Right, Caitlin? You've been with us for a while now.
Yeah, about 3 years now. So our 3 main initiatives of the kind of mental health, literacy, and civic engagement really fuels and drives the work that we do. So when we're looking for grant funding, when we're looking and sourcing for these projects that are going to enhance and fuel those initiatives of improving outcomes, we make sure that it is aligned with those pillars that really drive our work. And while they are very different individually, they're also interconnected as well. And I think that's the really great thing, too, about our strategy teams, our collective impact, the just networking and convening that we offer, too, is that it brings together so many organizations that are doing similar work, right? We're all kind of trying to move the needle on these major initiatives that I think a lot of us can agree on collectively in our community. We're all working towards these things, but we oftentimes are doing it alone or in these silos, kind of individually, where we can really have a greater impact when we work together. So our strategy teams, we meet on typically a quarterly basis for most of our strategy teams. Those are going to be birth through 5, so we have that really specialized early learning space. Then we have a children and families, which is more all-encompassing for the children and families in our community. That could also look like, geriatrics. They're part of the family unit as well. And then we have our Connecting Cobb veterans. That's a really big space we've grown into in the past couple of years as well, doing a lot more direct service with that space as well, which is amazing. And so, again, we'll kind of speak on the different things we do within each of those initiatives and programs. But overall, I think when we bring together, we do have a better impact. It's kind of that synergy, right, where the sum of our parts are greater than us individually. So when we do have that collective work together, when we know what exists, when we know who we can point to, if I can't provide that, if my organization can't support that, I know who to go to and connect that person to. So we have more of a wraparound for those in our communities, especially those that are the most vulnerable in our communities as well.
Yeah. Access is so important, right, Caitlin? We see that over and over, whether it's access to education or healthcare. And because we operate under this collective impact framework, we kind of know often who's doing what and can better guide families and children who are seeking services to those organizations and agencies.
So mental health is one of the pillars of our work, and we have a lot of the growth to thank for Resilient Georgia. That's one of our biggest funders, especially in the mental health space. They have really given us what we need to be able to kind of saturate the community with this trauma-informed understanding perspective. That's really what Resilient Georgia is founded on, and what it's the whole mission behind Resilient Georgia is really to create a statewide kind of initiative where we are all can have a common understanding. We have shared language around the impacts of trauma and adversity, especially through childhood. So we do a lot of our work kind of circles around and revolves around educating our partners, our community members, the individuals that make up our community, so we can all understand that the things that we've experienced in life, the things that we go through does weigh on us, and we carry that with us, whether we're aware of it or not. And especially in this space where we are convening other nonprofits or community serving groups like government entities, those that may be experiencing communities and supporting communities that have had higher rates of adversity, especially in childhood. So Resilient Georgia really helps us do that through the trauma-informed kind of understanding and lens that we do a lot of our programming, which includes these trauma-informed trainings that we have. So LK is or Leslie, we call her LK here, but Leslie is our mental health program coordinator, and she is a big part of those trauma-informed trainings and the work that we do in our mental health space. So I'll kind of pass it to you and let you talk a little bit about some of the trainings we have and all the programs we offer as well.
Yeah. So we do offer quite a bit of different trainings, all kind of encompassing around mental health and kind of becoming trauma-informed and resiliency-focused. The first one, the biggest one, or I guess the most relevant to me, I should say, is our community resiliency model. We call it CRIM here. So the CRIM training, the CRIM workshop is really all about gaining this perspective shift in order to become more trauma-informed and increase your resiliency, so your capacity to withstand challenges in life, to go through adversity, because, we're all human. We're all going to face challenges and go through stressors, trauma, different things like that throughout life. So that is a really great training in order to gain those skills, to what we say, equip your tool belt, your mental health tool belt, with the right tools and coping strategies to go throughout life and be able to withstand those stressors, right? And then the next one, Connections Matter, is really a deep dive into ACEs. So those are adverse childhood experiences, and really those happen before the age of 18. And we know that when those do happen in childhood, right, you can experience great effects as an adult. So the more they happen, the more it impacts your relationships, your work productivity, all sorts of things. And so that training really goes into the brain science with it and the ACEs, and kind of how to move throughout those and become more resilient, if you will. And then we also partner with Georgia State University, and they offer child welfare trainings. It's the Child Welfare Training Collaborative. And so we host with them 2 trainings a month typically, and those are always virtual, so easily accessible. You can find them on our events calendar each month, and really all of those are going into trauma, they're going into resilience, they're focused on family and child well-being, which, as we've all said and agreed, that is the theme and the main pillar of our work. And so those are really, really impactful if you work in the space or want to become more aware of how to be more trauma-informed and resiliency-focused. And then a new one that Irene and I have started is Mental Health Matters. So we've gone out into mostly senior communities. So we're at senior centers. We're going to be going back to some senior centers later this year, and also going to senior facilities and bringing in just this kind of basic overview of what mental health is and why it's important, especially for the geriatric community, going into some protective factors. So really all of those trainings, again, like I said, focus on trauma-informed care and response and becoming more resilient. And that's, again, with Resilient Georgia, it's all about increasing our resilience. So I think it's just so impactful that we have these trainings available to organizations and the community to benefit from.
Mm-hmm. I really love that you mentioned the perspective shift too that happens with the trauma-informed trainings. Mm-hmm. And it really shifts the question from what is wrong with you to what happened to you. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of the trainings that we have kind of do that, it gains that understanding and the why behind what's happening. Right. But then it also, I think it covers both that prevention and intervention. We're giving skills and tools that people can use right away that help with like nervous system regulation, maybe understanding our triggers and when we are maybe bumped outside in that space where we're not thinking clearly. So it's tools that we can use right away, but then we're also learning skills and tools to prevent those things from happening, preventing adversity, preventing those child maltreatment and things like that, which kind of leads to prevent child abuse. We're the kind of lead for prevent child abuse. And so it's all very interconnected, but I think our trauma-informed trainings all do a really great job of encompassing all those things and providing those layers of support that we need as a community.
Right.
One of the things that has been great is we received some funding last year to launch our resiliency stations, which are displays, if you will. We started with students, and now it's become fairly well known. I think we get requests. So either Leslie or Caitlin, you want to talk a little bit about what a resiliency station looks like?
Sure. So yes, this has been a fun thing that we can do to kind of give back to these different organizations and the education system that we often work with. And so basically, the station is another form of well-being. So you go to it to get either tactile resources or our rack cards on our Mind Your Mind initiative, all different kinds of things. Even our new resources include sour candy, so if you're interested. So basically what this station is again, just a point of well-being for either staff or students. It's really just a nice way to kind of focus on yourself when you're at your job, where all of it is mostly focused on your organization and the work that you're doing, which is so important. But we also have to remember to give back to ourselves at the end of the day. And if you need that break in the middle of the day, this is a great way to do that. So we, like Irene said, we started this with students. And so we have resiliency stations at 4 different high schools in the county. We're hoping to expand that to middle schools, high schools. And then we also have it at the Cobb Family Advocacy Center. So that's a big one that we just started, and we're so thankful for their partnership and their work that they do. And then we have it at the Cobb Juvenile Court, which is also a huge area, again, with going into child and family well-being. That's their focus there, right? And so we have one there for not just juveniles, but also staff that interact with them. And then we are actually soon going to be setting one up at the DFACS station in Cobb. So they have a wellness room, and we'll set up our resource resiliency station in that room for their staff, because we know that is a very hard job. So yeah, it's been so much fun, and we are hoping that we can eventually maybe get them everywhere in Cobb.
And we have a variety of tactile and print resources because we know that people build resilience different ways, right? One person, their jam might be journaling, and they can't wait every day to journal. For another person, it might be listening to music or having a meditation app on their phone and doing things like that. So, Leslie, I know you mentioned the candy. So the station's the goal is to appeal to all 5 senses and have a variety of ways that people can build resiliency. And, we talk about this term like it's something like maybe some people have the resiliency skill and some people don't. But the research tells us that people build resiliency like one drop at a time, right? Kind of like strengthening your core. You don't do one plank and then you're like, done. I've got a really strong core. I don't need to do anything again. Yeah. But it's, it's every day or every other day, and finding what appeals to you, what speaks to you, what can help you shift your mind if you need that, or what can help you stay strong in that moment. So it's been so exciting to watch that. And if anybody wants to fund us and help with that, we will not say no.
That's true, yeah. But again, I mean, just like we take care of our physical health, many people exercise every day, they go on walks, they go to the doctor when they should. We have to do the same thing for our mental health, which that kind of interconnects, right? But there's just so much power there with giving back to your mind and making sure that you're on the right track mentally.
Yeah. So true. And they're all connected too. I think the mental and physical aspect, right? If we're not taking care of ourselves mentally, oftentimes physically, we're having issues too. Maybe we're having trouble sleeping at night. We're having high blood pressure. All these things can kind of manifest physically as well if we're not taking care of the mental. So it really is like kind of this all-encompassing thing. But that's why the mental health is so important in addition to physical health. And
So, Caitlin, speaking of that, one of the areas that has really grown for us and that we've gotten much more intentional about is the birth through 5 space, because we know that 90% of the brain is hardwired by the time a child turns 5, which is typically entering kindergarten. And so much of that is dependent upon parent and caregiver mental well-being, right? So our birth through 5 work has really taken off over the last, 18 months, 2 years, maybe even longer. But we've gotten a lot more intentional about it. And that's where the work of Leslie Danford, our literacy coordinator, is so important, right?
Yeah. And so we know that the Basics was founded out of the Harvard Research Gap. The Achievement Gap, yes, the Achievement Gap Initiative. So there's a lot of research around this and understanding that, there is a need for, and that early childhood development is so critical, and in that those first 5 years. The first 3 years are really important, isn't it? What, 85% happens in that first 3, and then the next little bit is until 5. But yeah, 80% or 90%, that's a huge amount. And so oftentimes, you know, if we're getting to kindergarten and we haven't had that prep or that foundation, that's, you know, a lot of us can struggle with that. And especially as parents, like, you don't have a manual where it's like, here's how to parent everything, or you can probably find one, but there's all different kinds. And so it is an unique journey that a lot of times parents kind of feel lost at the beginning trying to figure out. And so that's really where the basics has been an instrumental part in our community of letting parents and caregivers feel equipped and confident in their kind of child rearing stages, you know, that part of parenting. And so I'll kick it to Leslie to kind of talk about the growth that we've had and really what we do with the basics, the paloozas we have, and all the fun stuff to make it really interactive and fruitful for the parents and caregivers.
Great. Thank you, Caitlin. Yeah, so the Basics is an initiative, as I said, that came out of Harvard and the Achievement Gap research that they did there. And what they found is that we have 5 principles in the Basics that we base our activities around. And the Basics is really about making the moments you have with your children more meaningful and intentional and creating a stimulating environment at home. And so if you do these 5 principles every day with your child, they will have a really great start in their learning environment, you know, to be ready for kindergarten. So that's what we're encouraging parents to do, is to go with these free, low-cost activities, using materials that they already have in their home, to create these experiences for their children. So one of the ways we do that is through our playground paloozas, which are basically they are geared towards children 18 months to about 5 years, about pre-kindergarten age, and their families. And we host these at different child care centers, at libraries, in parks sometimes. And what we're trying to do, we do one palooza or workshop based on each principle. And the 5 principles are maximize love, manage stress, talk, sing, and point, explore through movement and play, read and discuss stories, and count, group, and compare. So those are what we want to encourage parents to do. And so with our paloozas, they are activities that the parents are doing with their children at the same time, to encourage them to know, oh, my child does like to dance. Oh, my child does like to color. Oh, my child does like to count, you know, and have those light bulb moments, you know, where we can impart a little bit of developmental information, but really do it in a very fun and natural way. So far from January to July this year, we hosted 65 playground paloozas. And we are continuing to offer those, obviously, through the end of the year. But we reached approximately 1,700 participants, and we're very excited about those numbers. We're growing from last year, and we hope to continue to grow as well. So that's a little bit about our playground paloozas.
And the basics, one of the things we love about it, Leslie, is that not only the paloozas, but also we equip parents and caregivers with information via text messaging. We have more activities on our website. We have our activity cards that get dropped off around the county route, because we want to really sustain that, right?
Right. So what we've heard from our feedback and from parents and families is that they're really searching for activities to do with their children. And so we encourage them to sign up for our Basics Insights, which is our text messaging program that sends 2 texts a week for free based on their child's birthday, and it continues up until they reach age 5. And it provides developmental information and activity ideas, again, based on the child's birthday, so it's age appropriate. And so that's one way. And another way is we created these basics additional activity cards. So everywhere we host a Palooza, we actually leave these cards and we change them out once a quarter. And they have one activity, again, a low cost or free activity for parents to do with their children based on the 5 principles. So one activity for each principle. And so that just gives them a little bit more, insight into, oh, I hadn't thought about doing that before. I'll do that. So.
And as you were talking, Leslie, the word connection kept popping into my head. And really, it's all about that connection that the parent caregiver is forming with the child, right? Which leads directly into our mental health initiative, which allows for the brain to continue to grow and all those synapses to be firing. So when that little one gets to kindergarten, he or she is ready to be part of the next community, a school community, and has those social, emotional, and cognitive skills, right?
Absolutely. So children really thrive in an environment that's safe, loving, and predictable. And so if you can provide that for your children, you can really create a great connection. We talk a lot about attachment and the importance of the bond between the parent and the child and how positive that needs to be, because children really develop within a relational environment. And so it's all about the serve and return from the parent to the caregiver, from the caregiver to the child, and then back again. Making sure that they have that wonderful connection and an attachment, positive attachment.
And another thing that we do, maybe beyond the serve and return, when those little ones actually start talking and walking and all of that, right, is our family reading kits. And this has grown so much. A little bit unintended, I think, but it ended up getting combined with the Mayor's Reading Club, and we have 5, is that right? 5 of Cobb's 7 mayors are a part of the reading club, and then we have our family reading kits in most of those cities and places. So Leslie, we have a prop. We have, this was September's kit, right?
It was, yes.
Called the Scarecrow's Hat, and you have to read the book to understand why there's a fuzzy yellow chick in the kit. So get your kit now.
The duck noise.
Yeah, exactly. But really, we're all about trying to foster those positive parent-caregiver-child interactions, right?
Absolutely. By increasing literacy in the community, by providing these reading kits, which each have a book that was chosen by the Emily Limbeck Early Learning Center in their scope and sequence, which is kind of what they focus their inquiry questions on. And, each month they have different books that they focus on and ask different questions related to those books. And so we try to bring that forward out into the community so that everybody is reading the same thing. So it's kind of a collective shared experience. And so each kit contains a book, contains an insert with what inquiry questions we're working on, as well as what types of questions you can ask your children to encourage discussion about those books, and some sort of activity. So that goes along with the story as well for the children and family to do together.
And we really want to thank all of our funders and partners on that initiative. That'll be on our social media, so hint, follow us on social. You'll hear more about that. But it's been a great way, I think, to connect communities across Cobb with these kits. So, well, Caitlin, we know also that communities that have a high level of civic engagement have overall better health outcomes for their residents, which is why, I'm not even sure if you were with us, but we got our start in the civic engagement space really intentionally in 2020, or prepping for the Get Out the Count in 2020, not knowing what was going to happen in March of 2020. but we have stuck with it ever since, and that transferred over to Get Out the Vote, which then led to our Vote Your Voice initiative. So, and that's when you joined us. Happy day. Oh, happy day.
That is, when I got my start in 2021. I was in graduate school. I needed a practicum and found out about Cobb Collaborative, and they were kind of needing support with the Vote Your Voice initiative, which is funded through the Southern Poverty Law Center, to provide nonpartisan voter education, registration, and mobilization efforts to our underserved communities. So we were really targeting our young voters, so those first-time voters who may have never engaged before, and then those populations like our Black and Brown communities that don't always get the same kind of attention that some other communities do. So some of our low-income communities as well, we tried to focus on doing some really targeted registration and education efforts, really partnering with some other organizations as well, like our League of Women Voters, worked with Galeo, and really trying to support our community through nonpartisan efforts. That's a really big part of that as well. But so that's how I got my start, and really kind of evolved into this. But now we have Nicola Hines, who has really taken it. I mean, we've passed it into great hands. So I'll let her kind of speak on what we're doing currently with Vote Your Voice.
Yes, thank you so much. So I think I'm the newest on the team. I actually started this year in 2024. Perfect timing, right? Vote Your Voice has become more than just us registering folks. We've added some, obviously voter status is really important as we move forward in our election cycles. But this year I've really been focusing on nonpartisan voter education. We have here in the state of Georgia, we have, voting laws that get on the books, and that can really affect someone's civic engagement role. But I talk about not just the laws, but also the importance of being involved, right? And being involved beyond the election day. Because that's really when we talk about civic engagement and all our other pillars and stuff, and how do you get better mental health access? How do you get better literacy access? You have to be involved in our, election process and getting along with our elected officials and pushing that. Some people might call it lobbying, people might call it advocacy, but you want to advocate for your well-being. And so that's the main focus of what I've been focusing on. We have some great high school interns still. We have four actually. We just signed up a new one. 4 high school interns in 3 of our schools in Cobb County. Of course, my bigger goal was to have every high school have an intern. Maybe next year we'll get them all. But super excited with them. They ranging from sophomores to basically seniors right now. So we have some young folks who are like 15, 16. They can't even vote, but they're trying to get and educate their folks in their communities to vote. And Irene has had me all over. You're welcome. Thank you. She's had me all over county doing different types of events, in-person events, just libraries. I've been very familiar with the Cobb Library system early on in the spring, making sure everyone was understanding primaries. But now I am doing a library series. We have one actually tonight at Switzer Library. And so the library series was really to target the laws that we are experiencing. We have a new law, SB 189, and then, reminding people of the law, SB 202, because they came after the last presidential election. So a lot of folks really didn't quite comprehend what did SB 202 involve and how could that change their voting. And then also talking about district lines, because we went through special session. So to have people understand how to check their districts, making sure that the folks who are representing them, they know who they are, because those lines have changed, and some people might have had the same representative for the past 20 years, and this year they might not. But that's really important. So the library series, we focused on 4 libraries. I did Powder Springs, South Cobb Library. Tonight, like I said, we're at Switzer, and unfortunately because of the weather, we've rescheduled Mount View Library. And kind of just talk through that. It's about a 30 to 45-minute program. It's Q&A, it's very open, so it's not really structured. I kind of go through some of the stuff, but you can, folks interrupt, and we kind of talk through whatever question they have. So super excited about that. So doing this library system series has been really great. Like I said, just educating folks on the laws, having them understand their districts, great community Q&A going on. We are doing 4 libraries this year around. And then first time ever actually being the lead partner on a candidate forum. Super excited about that because we're focusing on the school board, which doesn't get a lot of attention in our communities. And they play a major role with our youth, right? And what that next generation is going to look like and how do they participate. So partnering up with Redefine Ed, they're moving into the Cobb community space. They're based out of Atlanta. And we're partnering up with Cobb Democracy with that, and Mi Familia Vota is also a partner with that. So super excited. We're going to focus on the 4 districts that are on the ballot this year. And so that's some of the educational programs that we're working on.
Nicola, you mentioned it or described it as, sometimes the school board race and other down ballot races don't get as much attention. And I know that that's something you're very passionate about, is the importance of down ballot voting and being an informed voter when you get to the booth. So you want to speak about that?
Yes, please. Yes. That is like my number one thing. I know Irene and and Caitlin, you guys have heard me say about presidential races is like the hot restaurant, the hot club to go to when you see the president, right? Everybody wants to get there to do that. But this year we actually have all of our state legislature, our state assembly is on this ballot. And how I explain to people is in the state of Georgia, especially Cobb County residents, is that if you're upset about something that's going on in your community, it's not the folks that are in DC, it's actually the folks who sit in Atlanta. We have a lot of federally funded programs, but our state legislators are the ones who decide how those funds are distributed. I always use that comparison, and when people tell me they're upset about kindergarten, right? Like, I said, well, yeah, kindergarten, you need to go to the Capitol, right? Or mental health, because we are closing hospitals, right? That is an extension of Medicaid, and that's, something that the state controls. So all this ties in with the civic engagement. And, we have commissioners, we have Cobb commissioners on this ballot, we have sheriffs on this ballot, we have district attorneys on this ballot. My little motto is that the lower they are on the ballot, the closer they are to your day-to-day life. And so, I tell people to focus on that. And I've actually had some really positive feedback when I start pointing out these things to folks about their down ballot candidates. Because a lot of people are like, they get voter fatigue, especially in the state of Georgia, knowing that we have to have 50% plus 1 vote. Otherwise, we go to a runoff. And so you
don't want to vote based on the president.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I've had a lot of good feedback with that, where a lot of folks, because of me educating them about down ballot candidates, that they're changing their mind to come out to vote and to exercise. One of the great things I was able to do also, which started this whole library series thought process, was the Epicenter, Riverside Epicenter had asked me to come and talk to them. And we really started talking about what does voting look like? What does civic engagement look like after November 5th, after Election Day? And part of those conversations is giving them the resources of knowing you can go to the state capitol. All you need is a valid ID to walk through the state capitol, and letting them know they can sit on committee meetings. They can even testify. They can just, be part of that process. I've talked to some young folks about getting to know their mayors or their council members, because that really does help them. So super excited about the opportunity to just kind of keep educating folks. This is like, some people say your jam in terms of journaling. This is my jam. I get excited and I feel so happy when I leave a good educational program and knowing that someone has stopped me or I had a deeper conversation with folks after the program's over, because that means I at least resonated with something that they can take back with.
And this November, not only is it people that we're voting on, but we'll have a couple of referendums. Well, we'll have one referendum here in Cobb and then 3 constitutional amendments on the ballot. But the MSPLOST is a really big topic of conversation here in Cobb. The proposed 1 penny sales tax to fund expansion and improvements to Cobb Link and our entire transportation system.
Yeah.
So, Nicola, do you know where people can go to find out more about that? I think they can go. Well, I think they can go to Cobb County DOT.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I was just like, yeah.
And then we'll have information.
Yes, we'll be putting out some more information about the MSPLOS. We're putting out a couple reels with the links and stuff on our social media. But yes, the Cobb County Department of Operational Transportation. They have a whole entire presentation. The MSPLOS is really important, especially being so close to, the Atlanta area, which a lot of people work in or want to even play in. There's so many different options of them expanding their trains, their bus system, even their kind of like a Uber system. Like, I don't want to call it an Uber, but it's like
I think they call it the micro transit.
Yeah. It's
and
like
it's that last mile,
right?
That is so critical and often requires such a heavy investment by local municipalities.
Yes,
that last mile from the bus stop to the doorstop,
and it's so important. A couple years ago, when I lived here, was when there was that gas shortage because of what happened in Florida, and I actually lived in Vinings. It was still kind of considered Fulton but I was on the border. I lived in Vinings, but I worked in downtown Atlanta. And, they were pushing people to use public transportation. It would have taken me almost an hour and a half to 2 hours to just get to downtown Atlanta because I would have to get to the Cobb Link bus at the Cumberland Mall. And then from there, go to a MARTA station, and then because the MARTA station that I needed to get to work was not the same MARTA station, I would have to transfer. So this will kind of help that connection, that missed gap, right? So you won't have to take the bus or the train to the plane to get to where you need to get to. So super excited. I'm excited for Cobb residents to possibly have that opportunity to kind of connect because there is so many of the commuters that go back and forth between that, and that helps out a lot. So I'm excited about that. But yeah, we'll be posting a lot more information about the MSPLOS, and we're trying to work on some things about the constitutional amendment. They're in the works, so really not going to explain exactly what we're doing yet because we're in the works of talking about the constitutional amendments that will be on the ballot.
And then one of the other things that you do a great job of promoting is the different ways to vote. We've got the window for absentee ballots already open. We've got advanced voting, and then we have day of. And people can find all that information on our Vote Your Voice page, right?
Yes. On our voice page, you can find that on there. Our social media, there's a link tree that actually brings you to the Secretary of State page if you want to look at that. The portal for early voting has opened. You have until October 25th to ask for your absentee ballot, for your absentee ballots. And then last day to register is October 7th, which is next Monday. And then early voting will start October 15th up to November 1st. And then election day is November 5th. We are, as an organization or as a person, as a coordinator, I've been pushing everyone to vote early. As much as possible because it's really important to make sure that if you have any issues, right, with your voting, by voting early, you can fix those issues, right? If you're at the wrong, you realize that your driver's license is missing your middle initial, they're still going to let you vote, but that can cause you to become inactive. So we want to make sure that they'll tell you, like, oh, okay, but you're missing this, or you see something on your voter registration card. You have time now to fix it if there's any issues before, a runoff comes on or anything like that. So it's really important to vote early to help out, and we have a new rule on the books.
Yeah,
hand counting. So we have a new rule in the books. That's another reason why I had to push early, because the new rule, hand counting is only on election day. So early voting will be the tally of the computers, but election day, they will be hand counting election day. And so this is kind of a push to help our poll workers for Cobb County so that we don't have them, they work long hours. They're there at 5 a.m. They typically don't end until 9 p.m. and then going to add a couple more hours to their day. So, if we vote a little bit earlier, it helps you. It helps our fellow neighbor who's doing their civic duty. And then, Cobb can then rest on hopefully November 5th.
I will encourage everyone to check your registration often too, because you never know. Like, I moved last year, but I did not update my driver's license. And I had voted actually in May in the primaries, but then I checked my registration recently and it was inactive. So I was like, well, let me make sure I go update my driver's license. I did all the things, but had I not checked, I would have, gone and been like, oh, I didn't realize I was inactive. And I was a recent voter too. So it wasn't like I had taken a while, a few years off of voting. So it's just, you never know when, like, if you're moving, if you change your name, all of those things.
An apartment number changed. Yep. So, and that's the key thing too, what you mentioned, Caitlin, about the inactiveness, right? You didn't update. So inactive is kind of like a little warning sign. something's wrong with your voter registration card. You can be, like I said, it could be a new address. You can still vote as an inactive voter. But they're going to keep sending you notifications. And if you don't fix what's voting, then you become purged. You become a non-active, not registered voter in the state of Georgia. So they kind of give you this warning sign, like something is wrong with your your record. Woo. Like I said, oh, you hyphenated your name, but you didn't hyphenate, didn't change it. I recently helped someone register, and I was telling him on the form, it says, your prefix, like, the second, the third, junior, senior. And he's like, well, my son's a junior, so does that make me a senior? I said, does your driver's license say senior? He was like, nope. I said, well, then you're not a senior today. So, so it was like, he was like, oh, okay. I said, because you want whatever's on that driver's license, that photo ID, match what your registration says. And so you might not use your middle initial. If that license has a middle initial, put that middle initial on there. So, so it's really important because, like I said, that's just your warning sign for your inactiveness. I'm glad you updated.
Yeah, me too.
But yes, check. You never know, like I said, if you become inactive or not. And also when you go to the Secretary of State page, my voter page, which is mvp.sos.ga.gov, they also notify you if your precinct changed. If you decide to vote on election day, you will get your updated. You can also download your sample ballot there. A lot of people don't realize that their sample ballot's actually on that web page too. And you can email yourself your precinct card, so you don't have to look for the physical mail.
Caitlin, you mentioned earlier about our Veterans Initiative and how we're getting into direct services in a way that we didn't really envision ourselves. That's something separate from the collective impact model, but you have seen it grow. And what are your thoughts about what we're doing in the veteran space now?
Yeah, I think it's been really incredible to watch evolve the way it has too, because it did start off as a strategy team meeting where we would just be convening those within the veteran space to kind of come together, work on issues, kind of have a space to talk about maybe barriers, problems of access. And so we've seen it kind of expand from there. It's not just we still do those the meetings. So there's still an opportunity to engage that way. But now we're more in the role of direct service itself, where we're helping those veterans that are unhoused find that kind of shelter in between. So say they have something lined up. Maybe it's like a VA benefit lined up. They're working with a nonprofit, maybe that supports, that can get them housing. Yeah. But there's often a period where it's like there's a couple weeks waiting period. There may be a couple of days. And during that time, they're unhoused, right? They don't really have any place to go. And so we've been able to provide those kind of temporary housing gaps, and putting people in hotels and overnight stays to make sure that they are sheltered and that they have a place to sleep at night and have a warm bed and things to, just because it's tough.
It is. As our program director Tyler Bowser, who is a formerly homeless veteran himself, says how important it is to remove the cognitive burden of homelessness. And so, you mentioned it may take a couple of weeks. It could definitely take some days. Some of the programs you have to have a TB test. Well, if the veteran presents, say it closes at noon on Friday and they get there at 1 p.m., then you're waiting all weekend long until you can get back on Monday. And then we know that there's a turnaround time for a TB test. So now you could be like 5 or 6 days away. Some programs require a mental health evaluation, and that's Tyler and his team of dedicated volunteer guides can help line that up. And if you are living in your car or you're living under a bridge, how do you really have the mental capacity to think through, I need to make a call, set up an appointment, is your phone even charged? Do you have a phone? Type of thing. So Tyler and his team are just doing incredible work. So, we're not just getting together and talking about the issues. We are helping to resolve some of the issues. And as Tyler says, he wants to be the loudest and most positive voice for veterans, not only here in Cobb County, but really in the metro area, if not beyond. So I have to admit, it's not something that I ever saw us going into. But when the need is there, how can you just walk away and say, oh, well, somebody else, I'm sure will fill that? Because guess what? Nobody is doing that in Cobb County for sure, and possibly very limited in the metro area. So I'm so happy and pleased about this, that we're meeting the need of those that have sacrificed so much. And I do want to point out, before anybody gets an image in their mind of the prototypical homeless veteran, our primary demographic is actually females with children. That's one that we prioritize. So it's, it's people of all shapes and sizes with all sorts of different experiences, right? Some, yes, Leslie, have adverse childhood experiences and trauma, and you can see that correlation between what happened in their past and their current situation. But others, missing paperwork or made a bad decision, or they are working, it's just not enough to get them stably housed when you look at all that's required, security deposit, first, last month, all that needs to go into it. So no pressure, Tyler, but we're looking for incredible results from you for the rest of 2024 and beyond.
Yeah, and Tyler couldn't join us on this little roundtable session, but we do have a special podcast with Tyler speaking specifically on the work that they're doing in the veteran space. And I think it's a true testament to his work and the lived experience, too. I think really propels his own, mission to support others, knowing that he's gone through those experiences and wanting to provide that for someone else so they don't have to go through what he experienced. And I think he's been doing an amazing job in championing, not just in providing the direct service and providing those housing, but he is advocating so hard for veterans and going to the Capitol, meeting with John Ossoff, all these things. Yeah. He's really being a champion in this space, and we're so thankful to have him.
All right, as we wrap up our session here, team, what are some call to actions that you want to share with our viewers? Leslie, we'll start with you.
Yes. So, in the space of trainings and workshops, we always have some available. We offer, again, to organizations and community. So our community resiliency model training that we have is on November 7th. That's for the community. So please feel free to stop by. You can find it on our events calendar. And we, again, always have opportunities to present, to offer training. So check us out.
Yes. Another way to get involved is to become a member. We are a member-based organization. We do like to gather people together and convene those in the serving space. So we do quarterly membership meetings that often include lunch and a speaker that has typically wonderful topics. So they're really great ways to make connections, meet new people, meet other organizations, especially if you're newer in this space too, and just great ways to get involved with one another and kind of uplift what you're doing as well. As a member, you can really utilize our own network by sharing your stuff on our social media, in our newsletters, all those kinds of things. So memberships has its perks, so check us out, go on our website, and you can learn more about it.
And talking about newsletters, if you want to know more about Cobb Collaborative and what we're working on and what our partners are doing, go to our website, cobbcollaborative.org, and sign up for our newsletters. We point out our events, resources. You'll get to know more of the team and what we're working on in particular for that month, and it comes out bi-weekly. So every other week, we have a new newsletter going out.
And don't forget about social media. Social media is a great way also to find out what's going on with Cobb Collaborative, as well as get hints on, there's mental health Mondays and all that kind of good stuff. So check out Cobb Collaborative on Facebook and Instagram. And you can also check out the Basics Cobb County also on Instagram and Facebook. We'd love to have your support. And vote your voice. Sorry. Yes. Yes, and vote your voice.
We're everywhere. That's the takeaway.
Follow, like, and subscribe everywhere.
So in addition to all of that, we're also on LinkedIn. Connecting Cobb Veterans is on LinkedIn and on Facebook. And then the Cobb Collaborative is on LinkedIn. So really, we are everywhere. And we have our own podcast, the Mind Your Mind Speaks. That podcast has been around for, I think about 3 seasons now, maybe 4. Losing count, but you can find us on Apple Podcast, and we ask that you leave us a review. So definitely come on out. We can't forget, of course, about our YouTube channel. So many ways to get involved. Join us. Be a part of this amazing opportunity to really connect with Cobb County families, really all of our residents. And there's so many ways. So team, I think as we close it out today, we'll just tell everybody to stay well, be kind, and remember there is no health without mental health.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye.